still to this day, some of our most viewed Nightmare Fuel episodes have surrounded the topic of war, with All Quiet on the Western Front and Come and See being amongst our top videos on the channel. And on both of those videos, we received request after request to do a Nightmare Fuel episode on a certain anti-war film from 1971, based on the 1939 novel of the same name, a film that explores the horrors of the First World War, and also a film that is recognised for being used in the music video for One by Metallica. The Ghoul Gang asked for it, so you're gonna get it. Let's talk about Johnny Got His Gun. As per all Nightmare Fuel episodes, there's gonna be major spoilers ahead. After the title credits roll, which show a series of real-life clips from the First World War, our opening shot is of a heavy-breathing man slowly opening his eyes, only to see three masked surgeons hovering over him. What a sight to see. It's almost alien in appearance, and right away just feels super off-putting. We learn that the man in question is injured severely, with his medulla oblongata undamaged, the only real reason why he has survived. But what is the severity of his injuries? It's something that is morally questionable and mortifying to contemplate. The man's name is Joe Bonham, played by Timothy Bottoms, and the result of his injuries have led the military to conclude that it is impossible for him to experience pain, pleasure, memory, dreams, or thought of any kind. He will be as unfeeling, as unthinking as the dead until the day he joins them. That concept is horrendous. To them, Joe is still medically alive, yet is a vacant shell. He has absolutely nothing. His world is dark and empty, yet he doesn't even realise that. Any minute grain of personality, any shred of his character is gone as though he's deceased, yet isn't until he is. Alive, yet as conscious as a microbe. That contemplation is nightmare fuel in itself, and you would morally put him out of his misery and just let him rest in peace. However, the scarier elements come from two mortifying facts. Firstly, he's being kept alive in this state for a reason. The quote that sent a shiver up the back of my neck is, "There's no justification for his continued existence unless we learn from him how to help others." They just flat out say, well, Joe isn't conscious to be able to say no, so we're going to keep him alive and use him as a guinea pig. From a man to a mound of flesh to an experiment. Already the nightmare fuel gauge is letting out steam in the danger zone, and we are only 7 minutes into the film. However, the second scarier element to Joe's condition is he actually is conscious and has the ability of reasoning, contrary to the military's medical assumptions that he is completely decerebrated. That to me is perhaps even scarier than not being conscious of what's going on. He's a literal prisoner trapped within his own body, yet is unable to express that in any way. If Joe is to communicate to the military, he's got to use what little movement he has and find a way. In the meantime, we drift into Joe's memories as he reflects on his life in the build-up to his injuries being inflicted, seeing his relationship with his girlfriend Kareen and his jagged bond with his father. We also look into Joe's dreams, where he converses with Jesus Christ, whom Joe imagines is played by a ripped Donald Sutherland, as you do. Now, one fearsome segment in this film comes when Joe goes to Jesus in his mind to seek help and guidance, yet when he describes his injuries, even Jesus himself is shaken to the core. With that level of bad luck, Joe uses the few senses he has left and concludes that his injuries have left him as a miraculously living piece of meat. He's a quadruple amputee, missing both arms and legs. He has no ears, which have resulted in permanent deafness. He's also permanently blind due to having no eyes, and even his nose and mouth have been wiped off. The only things that Joe can depend upon are his senses of temperature. He uses this to feel the heat of the sun to help keep track of day and night, and he can also sense vibrations in the room, so he can feel if anyone or a group of people are in the room. In a haunting supercut, we see Joe learning these abilities, his remaining senses heightened, and in a matter of seconds, a year has passed. A year of blackness, no sound, no sight, struggling to tell whether he's awake or asleep, living or dreaming, and only just barely able to have a concept of the passing of time. He's a husk, nothing but a large distorted fragment of the brave young man he once was. This is quite possibly one of the worst scenarios scenarios imaginable for a soldier. The statistic shown at the film's end tells us that there were over 80 million war dead since 1914, but 150 million missing or mutilated. Honing in on the mutilated elements, that's sickening. The tragedy of death is unmistakable, though those people are gone. However, nearly double that amount of people remain alive with their afflictions, having to live every day with the pain and misery of their wounds. Some losing their abilities of seeing or hearing or smelling or walking or talking, being a smaller shard of the person they once were. And in cases like Joe, almost every tiny characteristic of him has been blown to pieces by an artillery shell, and yet he still carries on living. Despite us seeing Joe as a person in his dreams and memories, most of the film we experience him via first-person narration, hearing his point of view. Bottoms does an incredible job here. He delivers the lines in an innocent and naive manner, making him extremely sympathetic. You truly feel for him and wish him back to health, but realistically, you can't. The only real options are Joe staying like this until he dies or killing him. However, Joe being killed is no easy feat, as we learn in the film's chilling climax. Thankfully, Joe knows Morse code and can twitch his head back and forth. There's a young nurse who forms a connection with Joe, and he knows whether it's her in the room due to her gentle nature and delicate frame. He twitches his head, spelling out SOS, help me. This gets the attention of the military medics, and they are able to speak with Joe about what he wants. Joe has a fantasy in which he wants to be put into a glass coffin. He wants to be in a carnival freak show, allowing the world to see the horrific nature of war, being a symbolic example of war's destruction. However, that wish cannot be granted due to Joe's complicated condition, needing to be hooked up to life support devices. Hearing this, Joe does a complete 180 and begs to have his life ended. He codes the words "kill me" over and over again. He either wants to mean something to people, being able to sense all their vibrations, or feel nothing at all, because the middle ground is a lonely and isolated place to reside. However, the military don't grant that wish either, wanting to keep Joe alive for research purposes. So he's pretty much stuck in this constant state of limbo, neither truly alive or dead. The young sympathetic nurse decides to grant his wish and places a clamp over Joe's breathing tube. The most tragic part here is Joe's reaction. He's thankful. He's delighted at his oncoming death and wishes the nurse happiness in her life with all his heart. To have so little in life and be in such a state of simultaneous existence and nothingness, and reducing Joe to a mindset where his imminent death makes him like a kid on Christmas Eve, that is heartbreaking. But even more heartbreaking is when the nurse's supervisor enters the room and catches the nurse's ploy and puts a stop to it. Joe doesn't get his death wish granted, and in the final nightmarish shot of the film, the camera slowly zooms out from Joe's bed. He realizes that he won't die, at least not at the hands of any person, only God. He's going to be kept here in a dark, lonely room with nothing but the isolation of his thoughts. No light, no movement, no sound, nothing but a void until he naturally dies. Weak and downtrodden, Joe repeats the words SOS, help me, as the film fades to black, so the audience now sees what Joe sees. This is one of the bleakest things I've witnessed. In its colour sections outside of the care room, it does possess some charm and some more light-hearted moments, but the guttural sledgehammer of its black and white centrepiece is one that I won't be forgetting in a hurry. Johnny Got His Gun was sadly not a financial success, making a budget versus box office loss reportedly around $250,000. There have been other adaptations of the book, with a 1984 Czech TV film and a 2008 stage production which was filmed and released starring Ben McKenzie. However, most would agree that it's this 1971 Dalton Trumbo version that is one of the most underappreciated anti-war movies ever made, and one in which the nightmare fuel lingers long after the care room fades to black. But what do you lot think of Johnny Got His Gun? Let me know in the comments below, and if you appreciated this video, then please do consider subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out a lot. Thanks in advance. Until next time, I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and we shall see you again for another dose of Nightmare Fuel.
SOS, help me. SOS.